Hello. It is another UFC fight night. Now I sound like, kind of dismissive with that, but it's a pretty good one. Like the main event is relevant, informative, and interesting. You got Marlon Moraes versus Yadong Song, which is all of those things as well. You've got Ankalaev versus Youssef. That is all of those things as well. You have an excellent action fight in Roundtree and Roberson. We have a very interesting test for Terrence McKinney. It's actually really, really good. I think this is one of the better fight nights the UFC has had in a long time, because every fight on the card, almost, has a point, relevance, and something for the future. Now, there are a couple exceptions. I think Guido Canetti versus Chris Moutinho is not a UFC level fight. We'll get to that in a bit. I think that I'm never going to be really all that excited for Cody Brundage. I mean, he's 8 fights into his career. Maybe he'll get better. Maybe he'll evolve like a butterfly or a Pokemon. But it's not super interesting right now. But having 2, maybe 3 fights like that, and the rest being pretty good, it's pretty good. That's pretty damn solid. I mean, Gillian Robertson versus JJ Aldridge is way down this fight card. Same with Sabina Maza, Miranda Maverick, Damon Jackson, Kenwell Kirk. Those are all relevant fights. So, I mean, actually, it's pretty stacked. I'm actually kind of more interested for this fight card than I was for the last pay-per-view. Of course, this one doesn't have Greg Hardy on it, so that probably helps a fair bit. Also, weighed in this morning, sub 245 for the first time in 2022. And the first time in a long time. So weight loss is going good. Let's get into the fights. Main event, Thiago Santos, Maheta the Hammer versus Magomed Ankalaev. Really interesting fight in the sense that this is the biggest challenge Ankalaev has had in his career. Someone tried to point that Volkan Oezdemir was a bigger challenge. I don't think so. I think that, Oezdemir is bigger and more appropriately 205-sized, and Maheta is a former middleweight, so there's some lacking size there. Maheta is very good at managing range, very patient, very dangerous, very accurate. And that's something that I don't think Ankalaev has had to deal with to this point. Every other striker he's faced has lacked something on that list, be that Oezdemir, who really only has one range where he's terribly comfortable, be that Jan Kutalaba or Nikita Krylov, who lack the patience part and are more aggressive, will kind of walk themselves into wrestling exchanges where Ankalaev is going to be comfortable. That's not what Santos is going to do. Yes, Santos has lost 9 times, and yes, Santos has been out-wrestled and out-grappled by guys who probably aren't as good at it as Ankalaev. But those guys had to take risks and be proactive in a way that Ankalaev usually isn't. Sure, you can get submitted by Eric Spicely, and that's a bad look. But Eric Spicely is also a guy who is willing to throw himself into a suicidal death roll to get at you. It's something Ankalaev's not going to do. So I've been going back and forth on who I'm going to pick on this fight. Because do I think Ankalaev's superior size, superior wrestling plays a role? Or do we get a very patient kickboxing match, which could potentially be boring, but at the same time fascinating? I'm going to go with Ankalaev. I'm going to gamble that, I have not seen him pass this test. It is a test that he is capable of passing, that he is capable of surviving, and even perhaps winning some exchanges on the feet against Santos, and that he can take him down if he needs to alleviate pressure and pick up the win that way, probably via submission. And that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say Ankalaev does win this fight via submission, probably a rear naked choke, because Santos will, if it goes to the ground, if it becomes a prolonged grappling exchange, he will get in trouble. And Ankalaev, not a submission whiz, more of a positional pounding type grappler, is still more than capable of taking advantage of that. You're going to hear a sound, and it's my chair going up, or at least the the armrests going up. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm not going to be surprised if Santos wins the fight via knockout. Would be probably my guess. And I'm not even going to be surprised if this ends up being just a full kickboxing match and Santos wins a decision. That's possible. But I do think there are more ways for Ankalaev to win this fight. And that's why I'm going to go with Ankalaev. Marlon Moraes versus Yadong Song. I'm interested to see that Marlon is faded in this fight as a moderate underdog. Plus 145 on the numbers I'm getting here. He's lost 3 in a row. That 3 in a row is against Corey Sandhagen, who's amazing. Rob Font, who's amazing. And Merab Dvalishvili, who's probably around the same area of Yadong Song in the rankings, but fights a very different fight. Fights a pressure-based wrestling fight that Yadong Song is not actually capable of fighting. And I like Yadong Song, if nothing else, just for the name. But he did lose to Kyler Phillips. He did have that draw with Cody Stamont. Those are guys who have been in the game no less time than Moraes at a high level. Don't necessarily have the... Well, Phillips has the same athletic ability, but Stamont doesn't. And that's the interesting thing here. Yadong does feel like... This feels like a winnable fight for Yadong. It feels like he can win the volume aspects of this fight. That Moraes has looked a little gun shy, a little problematic lately. But Song also doesn't ask the questions that Font and Sandhagen asked in terms of depth of technical striking as well as reach. Yadong is only 5'6". He will have a half-inch reach advantage, but Font is a monster for the weight class, and Sandhagen's the tallest bantamweight you're ever going to see. So, well, except for George Roop. But George Roop is a freak of nature that most people don't have to deal with anything like that. I want to pick Song. I really do. I really, really do. Because if Moraes wins, the division doesn't move forward. Moraes is 33 years old. That's reasonably old for the weight class. He has lost 3 straight. It does look like his chin is going. Used to be very, very good. It does look like some of the athletic ability is fading. But do I believe it? Do I believe it? Do I believe the 24-year-old? And it's hard to believe he's 24 because Song has got 23 fights 25 professional fights under his belt. It's insane. Tough. Oh, I went with Ankalaev to show up. It's tough. Honestly, this is the fight I'm having the toughest time because I can definitively see both of these guys winning. I can see the path. I can see Moraes with the technical savvy and the veteranness and the calmness and the ability to take on the storm that is Yadong Song and put the young man down and hit him with hard counter punches and show him that there are levels to this game that he has previously not passed. But I can also see the volume and the action and the athleticism just being too much for Marlon Moraes to deal with. I'm going to go with Marlon Moraes by decision. That's what I'm going to go with. Alex Caceres versus Sadiq Youssef. I'm going with Sadiq Youssef, but it's always interesting because Alex Caceres is a unique fighter in the sense that he always fights up to or down to his competition. It's why almost every fight he's had, this is a guy who had a super competitive fight with Steven Peterson, and at the same time managed to beat like Sergio Pettis. Like, it's very, very weird. He seems to have really gotten his stuff going lately. He beat Suhu Choi, he beat Kevin Kroom, beat Austin Springer, Chase Hooper, the aforementioned Steven Peterson. He's pretty confident on all of those. But I do think that unless you're going to really take advantages of the technical gaps in Youssef's game, his raw physicality, which is immensely impressive, will just carry the day. I think if this fight goes to the clinch, Youssef is super strong there. Youssef is a very good BJJ guy. He's very powerful on the feet. He's pretty damn technical. He's not just a heavy-handed brawler. He is a complete fighter with a immense physical skill set. And yes, he's coming off of a loss. And how does that affect the psyche? Because he hasn't lost in a long time. Lost to Arnold Allen. Hadn't lost since 2017 prior to that. What does that do to him? Does that take his confidence and make it flappable, for lack of a better word? I don't think so. I think Youssef's got the kind of confidence that will carry forward even after a loss. And even though Caceres is at the best point of his career, finally putting things together, I don't think he has the physicality to beat Sodiq Youssef. I do actually think he has the technique. It's just that he never seems to be able to step on the jugular in a fight, to like take the technical advantage that he has and just roll with it. He is taller, 5'10". He does have a 2.5 reach advantage. These are things Youssef's going to have to overcome. They were some things that were problems against Arnold Allen, but Arnold Allen, I think, is a really, really, really good fighter. And I don't think losing to him really showed any repetitive flaw in Sodiq Youssef. Probably going to win by decision. Caceres is super hard to finish. Khalil Roundtree versus Carl Roberson. Going with Carl Roberson, who is the underdog for this fight. I'm a little surprised by that. Roundtree, when he doesn't get going early and doesn't instantly kind of outstrike people, has problems. I mean, this is a guy who has lost to Marcin Prachnio in a kickboxing match in the UFC. Like, I don't have any real faith. I mean, sure, he looked good against Modestas Bukauskas, but I'm not a big believer in Bukauskas. Roberson's been pretty good. I mean, admittedly, this is a 205 fight. Roberson feels much, much more like a 185er. Probably should go back down there. He's very physically imposing there. He is on a 2-fight losing streak, but getting heel hooked by Brendan Allen is no shame. Brendan Allen is a scrambling motherfucker, and Marvin Vettori is one of the best guys in the world at the weight class. And, wins over Kopylov. And the win over Wellington Turman is one that is actually really aging very, very well. So, yeah, I'm going with Baby K, Carl Roberson. I don't trust Khalil Roundtree. That's been true for a while. And I do trust Roberson to fight pretty well. Drew Dober versus Terrence McKinney. So, the easy pick here is Terrence McKinney. And I say that because Terrence McKinney looks like a world beater. He looks super physically imposing. The wrestling is there. The power boxing is there. The grappling appears to be very legitimately there. Very, very exciting prospect. But we still haven't seen him win a particularly long fight. This man is it has been such a first round finishing artist. He's won his last 5 fights all in the first round. The last time he went out of the first round was against Sean Woodson, where he got flying kneed, but he was dominating Sean Woodson until he got flying kneed. And he has, in fact, only won 1 fight outside of the first round. Drew Dober is super tough. I can't remember the last time Drew Dober was finished in the first round. He was finished in round 3 by Islam Makhachev. He was finished in round 2 by Benil Dariush and by Olivier Aubin-Mercier. First round finish back in 2015 to Efren Escudero by guillotine choke. Efren has a super dangerous guillotine choke, even if he's a lazy fighter otherwise. I don't see that happening again. In fact, is that the only time he has been finished? That is the only time he's been finished at the first round, as far as I can tell. He does have a loss to Chase Hackett and to Brandon Gritz on the so long ago the Tapology doesn't have details of the fights. Those might be first round stoppages. I don't know. But you have to go back that far, and then the Efren Escudero fight. So, I mean, just on that level, this is a test for McKinney. If he comes out in the first round and Dober survives the first round, what happens? The thing is I don't honestly think McKinney is a gasser or a bully fighter who doesn't respond well to not instantly finishing someone. He does seem to have a confidence to him that goes beyond that. He does seem to have a skill set that goes beyond that. He does seem to have a physicality that goes beyond that. And that's why I'm picking him to win this fight. But man, am I concerned about it. Am I worried about it? And it looks like Vegas as well, because he is a slight underdog here, which is weird because Dober has lost 2 in a row. Granted, very, very good competition. Very, very good competition. Losing to Islam Makhachev and what was the other loss to? Brad Riddle. Very, very high level. Very high level. But that's also the level I think McKinney can be at, assuming that things translate beyond round 1. So I'm going to go with Terrence McKinney to win the fight. I'm going to say by 3rd round finish. Probably a submission. Dober has been submittable. So Terrence McKinney to win the fight. That's a gamble, though. That's a gamble. Bruno Silva versus Alex Pereira. Or Pereira? Not sure which it is. So this is the second time we've seen Alex Pereira in the UFC. Last time out, he beat Andreas Michailidis. And that was an interesting fight because it led to all kinds of weird Twitter nonsense after the fact. What I mean by that is that there were people who thought this was the UFC setting him up to fail. Oh my God, how dare they put him up against a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and Andreas Michailidis, who had attempted 1 takedown in the UFC prior. That's the big question mark with Pereira. Is he a scary enough striker that he will make anyone wrestle with him? Is he that scary? Because if he's that scary, it actually probably means Bruno Silva is going to win, because it'll make Bruno Silva grapple and wrestle, which he's good at but doesn't like to do. I don't know if he doesn't like to do it. But he likes to throw hands primarily. Like if Bruno Silva is given a fight that he completely controls, it's essentially going to be a boxing match. And that's a fight that Pereira is going to win. But we saw Michailidis, who is, like I said, a striker, despite the Greek black belt theory, go out there and wrestle him and neutralize him for the most part before getting knocked out. So it's very tough because MMA fighters do not necessarily live in reality, is how I'm going to put this. They don't necessarily live in the same reality that you or I do as watchers of fights. As watchers of fights, we know that standing with Alex Pereira is a bad idea. And that wrestling Alex Pereira is probably a good idea if you can do it. That grappling with Alex Pereira is a good idea. We also can see that Bruno Silva has the wrestling, has the grappling to do that. But how many times have we seen a fighter not do that? How many times have we seen a fighter fight the fight they want to fight as opposed to the smart, safe fight? How many times have we seen it? Because it's a lot. Do I trust Bruno Silva to do that? It's weird. It's kind of like a couple of fight nights ago. Might have been the last one or the one before that. We had the Misha Serkinov versus Wellington Turman fight. I took Serkinov because I thought there was really no way Silva or Wellington Turman would win the fight. That, sure, Turman's dangerous in scrambles. Turman's dangerous if he gets back control or top position, but that Serkinov should just be able to disengage and go back to the feet, and he would win on the feet. And then he didn't. He played with fire. And this is the same weight class even. Oh, boy. Should I like put a proviso on the pick? I'm gonna go with Pereira. I don't trust Bruno Silva not to play with fire. I don't trust him to put the ego aside and just not try to box with Pereira, and that will probably end in a first round knockout. Matt Semmelsberger, AJ Fletcher. I still don't know what to make of AJ Fletcher. I really don't. One of the contender series, but he's a guy who fought nobody up until that point. Like literally, here are the records of the guys at the time he fought them: 0-1, 9-16, 1-3, 2-2, 10-9, 6-3, 9-17, 3-4. So prior to his win on Contender Series, there is nobody there. But I mean, Gladiator Academy is a reasonably good gym. It's Tim Crater's crew. But I can't pick him. I can't pick someone who is just crushed his way to the UFC. Do not get me wrong. Perfectly legitimate signing. There's a lot of physical upside to Fletcher. There's a lot there. But he is at some point due for a hard brick wall. I don't know if this is it, but it could be Sammy the Jedi Semmelsberger, who I'm going to take by TKO, probably first or second round. He's going to catch Fletcher with something that Fletcher doesn't see coming and get the job done. JJ Aldridge versus Gillian Robertson. I'm surprised to see Gillian Robertson is the favorite here by as much as she is, because I'm really feeling like JJ Aldridge can win this fight. Robertson is pretty simple as a fighter, and I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean we know what she wants to do, we know how she's going to approach it, and we know everything about how this game is going to go from her. There's not a lot of deception or anything like that. And I feel like just JJ Aldridge can win that fight, because I feel like the pressure of Robertson, the strength in the clinch, the get the fight down to the ground, get the back or get the arm bar, whatever, get the submission, is something Aldridge is equipped to battle against. Aldridge is a pretty strong clinch fighter, and she's a much better boxer than Robertson. And when Aldridge is a better boxer, she wins. Every fight that she has lost, be it to Sabina Mazo, I guess you could argue Macy Barber, Juliana Lima. I'm just not counting the really early loss to Jamie Moyle. Moyle, when she started her career, was actually a really scary prospect. We don't remember that now because things didn't go great. Things didn't translate from the wrestling mat to the cage that well. But like Sabina Mazo, much better striker than Gillian Robertson. Macy Barber probably is a better striker than her as well. And Juliana Lima was really an interesting challenge, a very good shot wrestler that isn't Robertson. So I'm going to have to go against Canadian here. I'm going to have to go with JJ Aldridge to win this fight. Decision. Trevin Jones versus, I'm going to probably butcher this, Javit Bassarat. I think that's how you say it. I'm going with Trevin Jones here. Trevin Jones is a way of just like surprising people that are just not like ready for it. Like Bassarat, I think, is actually the more long-term UFC fighter, the higher ceiling, the could not necessarily be a future champion, but could make his way up the ranks, be a ranked fighter, be a guy who's around for a really long time, really talented. But Trevin Jones just has that ability to be like, so bam. And I think that's going to happen here. So I got Jones. He's the underdog in this fight. Definitely maybe worth some money. Damon Jackson versus Ken Weller-Kirk. I'm going with Ken Weller-Kirk. I'm very impressed with what he can do. I'm not super impressed with what Damon Jackson can do. Damon Jackson is perfectly fine. I'm not saying doesn't belong in the UFC or anything, but Kirk just took on what I think is a way better version of this fight in Makwan Amirkhani, and got the job done with flying colors. So yeah, we're going that way. Probably a second or third round TKO. Sabina Mazo, Miranda Maverick. I'm taking Sabina Mazo because right now I really don't trust Miranda Maverick. I think Miranda Maverick is in a transitional period of her career. And what I mean by that is I think she's trying to reinvent herself. She's moved to Elevation Fight Team, which is a new gym, very different than her old gym, where she was the focus of everything, I think. That's my read on it anyway. She was the only fighter really that gym had. And I think she's trying to learn to be a new fighter. And I think, to be clear, I think this is going to be good in the long run. I just think that there's going to be some speed bumps. She did not look comfortable against Erin Blanchfield at any point. Now, Erin Blanchfield, much better fighter than Sabina Mazo, looks really, really good. But I think even in the Macy Barber fight, she didn't, which she won. I want to make that clear. Miranda Maverick beat Macy Barber. Fuck the judges. But I think at the end of the day, I think some things are trying to fall into place. And when you become an Elevation Fight Team member, you're going to become better, but it is a process and it is something you're going to have to adjust on. So I'm going to take Sabina Mazo to win a decision here. Just be kind of a bump on the road to a better Miranda Maverick. Cody Brundridge versus Dolce Lungiambula. Lungiambula probably to win this fight. Coming off a loss to Marc-Andre Barrio. His UFC run has not been great. Beating Marcus Perez and Dequan Townsend is not great endorsements. Losing to Barrio and Ankalaev points to certain problems about physicality. But Brundridge is just not very good. Just not very good. Lungiambula by decision. Guido Canetti versus Chris Matinho. When someone told me that Chris Matinho was a favorite on a UFC card, I thought it was ridiculous, and then I found out he's fighting Guido Canetti. Canetti's 42 years old and is a bantamweight, and he's a bantamweight that was never terribly technical to begin with. A 3-fight losing streak to Mana Martinez, Batcarel Dana, and Marlon Vera. His wins in the UFC are Diego Rivas and a surprising one over Hugo Viana. Hugo Viana is one of those ones I thought actually was going to be really, really good, and then wound up being just a complete disappointment. I'm going with Moutinho to win probably his only UFC fight here because he's scrappy, he's energetic, he's tough. He's immensely tough, both physically and mentally. Probably wins a decision here against Canetti, who does not respond terribly well to people who just don't go away. Tafon Njukuke versus Azamat Murzakanov. I like that name. Murzakanov is the favorite here. That's a little bit interesting. I didn't think he really would be. 35 years old. Very odd time to be debuting in the UFC. This is his debut, right? Yeah, he won a Contender Series fight. He's got a pretty good resume for a guy making a debut. He's got a win over Guido Inocente. He's got a win on Andre Muniz. These are both very good fighters and very, very different fighters as well, which you got to like. He does seem to have a very well put together skill set. I'm not the biggest believer in Nchukwe. I really never have been. He's immensely physical, immensely powerful. But we did see against Junyon Park that there is some limitations there to his game. But I do think he's going to win this fight. I just don't... A lot of what Murzakanov likes to do is kind of be physical. And I just think that that's the absolutely wrong approach to taking on Tafon. Just period. This man is a bowling ball with legs. He's super powerful. Super powerful. I still don't believe in him long term. I think that there are some significant limitations to his game. But if he goes up against anyone who's like, I'm strong, I'm physical, I'm a badass, I'm powerful, you can't deal with my strength, he can. And you can't deal with his. So, Nchukwu by decision. But long term, I still have big question marks. But it's a really interesting card. Like, that for a fight night opener, that's nice. That's nice. So yeah, that is the card. Really looking forward to some fights here. Really interesting. Seriously, this. I have not gushed over a UFC card in a while, and I'm gushing here. I mean, sure. We don't have a number one contenders match in the main event. We don't have that one huge fight. Although Ankalaev, if he gets past this test, this may be remembered as a big fight. But damn, if not every one of these fights is pretty damn interesting. This is 14 fights on this card, and like the only ones I have no real interest in the dynamics of are Kennedy versus Moutinho and Brundridge versus Lungi and Bula. It's pretty damn good. That's pretty good. Anyways, hope you enjoy, and I will see you on the other side.